On June 12, 2014, a warm Thursday evening in the quiet town of Ridgewood, what began as an ordinary summer day would soon evolve into one of the most haunting mysteries the community had ever faced. 23-year-old Sarah Whitfield, a vibrant young woman known for her kindness, ambition, and deep sense of responsibility, vanished without a trace shortly after leaving her workplace at a local graphic design studio. Ridgewood wasn't the kind of town where people disappeared. It was the type of place where neighbors waved across lawns, doors were left unlocked, and everyone knew everyone. So, when Sarah failed to come home that evening, alarms sounded immediately, first within her family, and then throughout the entire community. No one could have imagined that the events unfolding that day would lead to a devastating tragedy, one that would leave long-lasting scars on Ridgewood and permanently alter the lives of those who loved her most. This is the heartbreaking story of Sarah's disappearance and murder, a case that shook the town to its core. Sarah was described by those closest to her as a beam of light, gentle, thoughtful, and exceptionally hardworking. At 23, she had already earned a reputation as one of the most promising young designers at her firm. Her coworkers admired her creativity, but even more, they admired her compassion. She never hesitated to help a colleague struggling with a project, nor did she shy away from taking extra shifts when the team was overwhelmed. Outside of work, Sarah lived a quiet life. She enjoyed long walks, sketching nature scenes, reading crime novels, and spending time with her mother, Rebecca, and her younger brother, Daniel. Nothing about her routine suggested instability or danger. She wasn't involved in risky relationships, didn't socialize with questionable crowds, and was never known to wander off unexpectedly. That was precisely why her sudden disappearance felt so shocking. Something simply didn't fit. For a woman who lived by structure and predictability, disappearing without explanation was entirely out of character. The morning of June 12th began like any other. Sarah left her family home around 8 a.m., wearing a soft blue blouse, carrying her favorite canvas tote bag, and with her sketchbook tucked securely inside. She kissed her mother on the cheek before stepping out the door, promising she would be home for dinner, a promise she rarely broke. That day at work, by all accounts, was uneventful. Co-workers recalled that she completed a branding project, chatted lightly about weekend plans, and even joked about needing a long nap after an exhausting week. Nothing in her demeanor suggested fear, stress, or anxiety. Security cameras showed Sarah exiting the building at 5:42 p.m., walking toward the parking lot with steady, confident steps. Her car was parked in its usual spot. But between that moment and the time she was expected home, something unthinkable happened. When Sarah failed to arrive for dinner, her mother tried calling her repeatedly. Each call went straight to voicemail, an instant warning sign that something was terribly wrong. By 9 p.m., panic had fully set in. Sarah's mother contacted the Ridgewood Police Department, reporting her daughter missing. Officers took the report seriously from the start, given Sarah's dependable nature and the unusual silence from her phone. Within hours, a preliminary investigation was launched. Detectives visited the design studio, pulled security footage, and began interviewing co-workers and neighbors. Meanwhile, Sarah's family and friends formed search groups, scouring nearby parks, streets, and wooded areas. Social media lit up with her photo, urging the community to keep their eyes open. But despite the rapid mobilization, no immediate clues emerged. Her car remained in the parking lot, untouched. Her personal belongings were still inside, and there were no signs of struggle, no witnesses, and no unusual activity caught on camera. Ridgewood had become the scene of a chilling mystery. For the first time in decades, fear crept into the hearts of its residents as the possibility of foul play loomed large. Detectives soon learned that Sarah had received an unexpected phone call around 5:30 p.m., just minutes before leaving work. Her phone logs showed a number that wasn't saved in her contacts, though it appeared she had answered it. Coworkers confirmed she stepped into the hallway to take the call, speaking in a low, serious tone. When she returned, she seemed slightly distracted but brushed off questions, saying she just needed to handle something after work. That detail sent investigators down a new path as they attempted to trace the number. Unfortunately, it had been registered under a prepaid phone with no identifiable owner. The call lasted less than 2 minutes. Detectives suspected the call may have lured Sarah into a situation she believed was harmless, only for it to lead to something far more sinister. While search efforts continued, investigators grew increasingly convinced Sarah had encountered someone she knew or trusted, someone capable of manipulating her into letting her guard down. Over the next 48 hours, Local and state law enforcement collaborated to intensify the search for Sarah. Helicopters flew overhead. K-9 units were deployed across forest trails and riverbanks. Volunteers combed through dense brush and abandoned structures. Despite these efforts, the search yielded no trace, no clothing, no discarded items, not even a footprint. Detectives questioned Sarah's co-workers again, probing deeper for any possible leads. One co-worker, Melanie, mentioned something peculiar. A week prior, Sarah had expressed discomfort about someone who she thought might have been following her after work. She didn't provide details, and Melanie hadn't taken it seriously at the time, assuming Sarah was mistaken or simply exaggerating. But now, that comment took on chilling significance. Detectives wondered if Sarah had been stalked. Perhaps someone had been watching her routine, waiting for the right moment. As anxiety grew in the community, the search shifted from hopeful recovery to grim uncertainty. The town held its breath, fearing what the next development might reveal. 3 days after Sarah's disappearance, a break finally came. A local farmer reported seeing a beige pickup truck parked near remote service road on the night Sarah vanished. The truck had been unfamiliar, and the farmer noticed it driving away at high speed around 7 p.m. Investigators canvassed the area and discovered faint tire tracks leading into a wooded path about 2 miles from Sarah's workplace. The tracks appeared fresh, matching the farmer's timeline. A search team was dispatched immediately. As they ventured deeper into the woods, the forest grew dense and ominous, with branches closing in overhead like skeletal arms. Every step heightened the tension. After nearly an hour of searching, they found something troubling: a single white sneaker partially buried in the dirt. It was Sarah's. The discovery confirmed what investigators had feared. She had indeed been taken from the area. But finding her shoe only deepened the mystery. Where had she been taken next? And why was only one shoe left behind? Detectives began investigating individuals with access to a beige pickup truck, focusing on known offenders, local contractors, and employees of nearby businesses. During their inquiry, Sarah's co-worker mentioned a former employee named Mark Willis, a man in his early 30s who had been fired 6 months earlier for aggressive behavior and inappropriate comments toward female colleagues. Mark owned a beige pickup and had allegedly developed an unsettling fixation on Sarah during his time at the firm. Although Sarah never publicly complained, co-workers noticed his tendency to hover around her desk, ask personal questions, and offer unsolicited compliments. Detectives pulled Mark's records and discovered a prior arrest for harassment involving another woman. With mounting suspicion, they visited Mark's residence. To their surprise, he wasn't home. Neighbors confirmed they hadn't seen him in several days. Inside his house, investigators found signs of a hurried departure: dirty dishes, half-packed bags, and an empty gun safe. The evidence suggested Mark had fled, raising further alarm. As detectives expanded the search radius surrounding Mark's last known location, they uncovered CCTV footage from a gas station taken on the evening of Sarah's disappearance. The footage showed Mark's beige pickup pulling into the station around 6:15 p.m., shortly after Sarah left work. What chilled investigators was the glimpse of what appeared to be a woman's head in the passenger seat, leaning downward, her hair matching Sarah's description. Though the angle and resolution didn't provide complete clarity, the footage reinforced suspicions. Detectives also noted Mark's nervous demeanor in the video. He kept glancing over his shoulder, fidgeting, and avoiding eye contact with the cashier. He purchased fuel, a pack of cigarettes, and a large roll of duct tape. The timestamp and his behavior painted a disturbing picture. It became increasingly evident that Mark was involved, but the question remained: where had he taken Sarah afterward? With each passing hour, the urgency grew. Time was slipping away, and hope of finding her alive was diminishing. 5 days after the disappearance, a breakthrough occurred when a hiker exploring the outskirts of Ridgewood stumbled upon a makeshift campsite in a remote clearing. Concerned by the disarray, scattered food wrappers, a burnt-out fire pit, and the remnants of torn fabric, the hiker contacted authorities. Investigators arrived quickly and identified several items belonging to Sarah, including her sketchbook and tote bag. Disturbingly, the pages of the sketchbook were smeared with dirt and partially ripped, as though someone had rifled through it hastily. Forensic teams secured the area and discovered footprints matching Mark's shoe size, along with tire tracks from a pickup truck. But most chilling of all, they found traces of blood on a piece of torn canvas fabric. Laboratory analysis later confirmed the blood was Sarah's. The discovery crushed any remaining hopes that she might still be unharmed. Detectives feared they were no longer searching for a missing person. They were now hunting a killer. The discovery of Sarah's belongings prompted a statewide manhunt for Mark Willis. Police departments across neighboring towns were alerted. Checkpoints were established along major roads, and Mark's photo flooded news broadcasts. But despite the rapidly intensifying search, Mark remained elusive. His truck was spotted twice, once near a rest stop outside Ridgewood, and later near a remote mountain pass, but he vanished before officers could apprehend him. Investigators believed he was hiding in forested areas, using outdoor survival skills he had gained during his years as a construction worker in wilderness regions. The longer Mark remained at large, the more dangerous the situation became. Authorities feared he might harm someone else or attempt to flee the state entirely. Meanwhile, Sarah's family grappled with unbearable grief. Her mother appeared in a televised plea, her voice trembling as she begged Mark to come forward and reveal what happened to her daughter. The entire community stood behind her, desperate for justice. On the 7th day of the search, investigators discovered Mark's abandoned pickup truck in a ravine. The vehicle appeared to have rolled down a steep slope, its front end crushed against a cluster of rocks. Inside, officers found several disturbing items: rope, duct tape, a bloodstained jacket, and a handwritten note. The note contained cryptic phrases, referencing regret, fear, and a vague allusion to losing control. But what sent chills through the investigative team was a line scrawled across the bottom. "I didn't mean for it to go this far." The discovery of the note suggested Mark knew the authorities were closing in and that guilt was weighing heavily on him. But it offered no concrete information about Sarah's whereabouts. Investigators feared Mark might attempt suicide before they could apprehend him and recover her body. With limited time, the search operation shifted toward predicting Mark's next move, focusing on areas he was known to frequent during his years in Ridgewood. Investigators traced Mark's past activities and learned he often visited an old, abandoned hunting cabin deep within the redwood forest, a place he considered a personal escape whenever he was overwhelmed. The cabin, built decades earlier, had long since fallen into disrepair, but locals occasionally spotted Mark hiking there alone. Given the mounting evidence, detectives believed the cabin might hold crucial answers. A tactical team was assembled, and officers moved in carefully, fearing Mark could be armed or desperate. As they approached the cabin, the air grew heavy, tinged with a sense of foreboding. The front door hung slightly open, creaking softly with each gust of wind. Officers entered cautiously, scanning each corner. Inside, they found sleeping bags, canned food, empty water bottles, and a horrifying sight. In the back corner of the room lay a shallow, hastily covered mound of soil, disturbed enough to suggest recent burial. Every person in the cabin froze, realizing what they were likely standing over. Forensic teams were called in immediately, and the cabin was sealed off as a potential crime scene. Slowly and meticulously, the mound was uncovered. Beneath it, investigators found the body of a young woman, wrapped in a torn blanket. Although decomposition had begun, there was no question, it was Sarah. Her hands were bound, and bruising around her neck indicated she had been strangled. Her expression, frozen in time, reflected both fear and pain. The discovery was devastating but brought an end to the agonizing uncertainty that had gripped her family. Sarah's mother broke down when notified, her anguished cries echoing through the police station. The community, too, was shaken to its core. What they had feared was now confirmed. Sarah's life had been stolen in a brutal and senseless act of violence. Investigators worked tirelessly to document the scene, gather evidence, and reconstruct what had happened in Sarah's final hours. But one haunting question remained: where was Mark? As forensic teams examined the cabin, they discovered a trail of footprints leading into the dense forest behind the structure. The prints appeared fresh, likely less than 24 hours old, and suggested that Mark had fled shortly before officers arrived. Given the rough terrain and the expanse of the forest, tracking him would be challenging. Still, the search intensified. Dozens of officers, K-9 units, and aerial drones swept the area, moving deeper into the wilderness with each passing hour. The mission was no longer just about arresting a suspect, it was about preventing further harm. Investigators pieced together the timeline. Mark had abducted Sarah from the parking lot, taken her to the campsite, and eventually brought her to the cabin. Evidence suggested a prolonged struggle, indicating Sarah had fought desperately for her life. As the hunt continued, officers feared Mark might lash out again, either against others or himself. The community watched anxiously as the manhunt escalated into one of the largest Ridgewood had ever seen. It wasn't until the 10th day after Sarah's disappearance that the search team received a promising lead. A hiker reported seeing a man who matched Mark's description wandering near a rocky ridge approximately 5 miles from the cabin. The man appeared disoriented, dehydrated, and carrying a small backpack. Responding immediately, officers converged on the area, approaching with extreme caution. The terrain was dangerous, narrow cliffs, uneven pathways, and thick vegetation that obscured visibility. As officers moved closer, they spotted Mark standing near the edge of a steep drop, staring out into the vast expanse of forest below. He looked exhausted, his clothing torn, and his face streaked with dirt. When officers called out to him, Mark turned slowly, his eyes hollow and hauntingly empty. Instead of surrendering, he stepped backward toward the cliff's edge. The officers shouted for him to stop, begging him to come forward. But before they could reach him, Mark made a sudden, irreversible choice. Mark threw himself from the cliff. Officers rushed to the edge, watching helplessly as his body disappeared into the ravine below. Emergency personnel descended the slope, but Mark was pronounced dead at the scene. His final act left investigators with a mix of emotions, frustration, sorrow, and a deep sense of unresolved injustice. Without a trial, without interrogation, without answers directly from Mark himself, the full truth of what happened to Sarah would never be completely known. While forensic evidence painted a clear picture of abduction and murder, the motive behind Mark's actions remained partly shrouded in darkness. Why had he fixated on Sarah? What drove him to escalate from obsession to violence? And what exactly transpired in her final moments? These unanswered questions left a lingering shadow over the case and added to the emotional weight carried by Sarah's loved ones. Ridgewood, once peaceful and trusting, now grappled with the harsh reality of vulnerability and loss. Following Mark's death, investigators focused on reconstructing Sarah's final hours through forensic evidence. Soil samples, fibers, and DNA traces revealed that Sarah had likely been killed within 12 hours of her abduction, sometime during the night of June 12th. Marks on her wrists indicated prolonged restraint, while bruising on her arms and face suggested she had fought fiercely. It was clear Sarah had not gone quietly. She had fought for her life until her final breath. The medical examiner determined the cause of death to be manual strangulation. Based on evidence gathered from the campsite and cabin, detectives theorized that Mark attempted to keep Sarah captive, possibly driven by delusional fantasies or obsessive desires. When she resisted or attempted to escape, his violent impulses escalated, leading to her death. The brutality of the act shocked even seasoned investigators. Sarah had been a kind, innocent woman with her entire life ahead of her, taken by a man whose inner demons remained mostly unexplained. As the case reached its official close, Ridgewood entered a period of profound mourning. Candlelight vigils were held in Sarah's honor, drawing hundreds of residents who stood together in silent grief. Her friends shared stories of her laughter, her creativity, her compassion, and her dreams of one day opening her own design studio. Teachers from her school years spoke of her intelligence and dedication. Neighbors remembered her as the girl who always offered to help carry groceries or walk their dogs. The emotional impact of her loss extended far beyond her immediate circle. It touched the entire community, reminding everyone of the fragility of life and the hidden dangers that sometimes lurk behind familiar faces. In the weeks following her funeral, local businesses displayed candles in their windows, while the town square became filled with flowers, handwritten letters, and drawings, a tribute to a life taken too soon. Sarah's mother, Rebecca, became the symbol of resilience amid unimaginable heartbreak. Though shattered by grief, she dedicated herself to seeking change in her daughter's memory. She worked closely with advocacy groups to push for stronger laws surrounding workplace harassment, stalking behavior, and the tracking of violent offenders. Her voice became a powerful force in the state's legislative community. She spoke passionately at town halls, emphasizing the critical need to take threats and obsessive behavior seriously before they escalated. Her strength inspired many who had suffered similar losses. Despite her devastation, she channeled her pain into purpose, refusing to let Sarah's death become just another statistic. Her efforts led to the creation of the Sarah Whitfield Act, which improved early intervention protocols for harassment cases and increased mental health investigations for individuals with repeated complaints filed against them. In the months that followed, Sarah's story continued to ripple throughout the region. True crime shows highlighted the case, using it as an example of how dangerous unchecked obsession can become. Crime experts dissected Mark's behavior, noting several red flags that had gone unnoticed or underestimated. His fixation on Sarah, his escalating aggression, and his abrupt dismissal from work all pointed to a man spiraling out of control. And yet, despite these warning signs, no one realized the extent of the danger he posed. The case served as a chilling reminder that predators can exist anywhere, even in peaceful towns, even behind familiar faces, even among people we work with daily. Schools adopted new safety programs, workplaces strengthened reporting systems, and community leaders urged residents to trust their instincts whenever something felt off. Sarah's tragic fate became a catalyst for change, one that saved lives by increasing awareness and encouraging early intervention. Investigators later compiled a psychological profile of Mark, piecing together fragments from co-workers, neighbors, and family members. They discovered a pattern of isolation, failed relationships, and increasing resentment toward women who did not reciprocate his interest. Co-workers recalled how he misinterpreted kindness as romantic interest, often convincing himself that women who barely knew him were secretly attracted to him. Mental health experts reviewing the case suggested Mark may have experienced delusional attachment, a condition in which individuals form obsessive, imaginary bonds with others. But lacking proper treatment and unwilling to acknowledge his behavior, Mark's emotional instability worsened. When Sarah, who had been nothing but polite to him, unintentionally became the focus of his obsession, his unhealthy fantasies deepened. Experts believed that losing his job further fueled his resentment, making him see Sarah as both a symbol of rejection and an object he believed he deserved. When reality clashed with his delusion, it triggered the violent outburst that ended her life. One of the most haunting aspects of the case was how close Sarah had come to being saved. Footprints found near the campsite suggested she attempted to escape at least once. Broken branches and drag marks indicated she had fought with remarkable determination, trying desperately to reach safety. Several investigators found themselves deeply affected by this detail. They imagined the terror she must have felt, the courage she demonstrated, and the heartbreaking outcome that followed. Even in her final hours, Sarah demonstrated immense strength, a testament to the willpower she had carried throughout her life. Many community members found some comfort in knowing that she fought bravely, refusing to give up until the very end. But the knowledge also deepened the sorrow surrounding her death. People often wondered whether a passerby, a hiker, or anyone nearby might have saved her had they only been a little closer. It was a painful reflection on timing, chance, and the tragic circumstances that aligned against her. In the years following Sarah's murder, Ridgewood slowly began to heal, though the scars of her loss never fully faded. Her story lingered in the town's history, shaping how the community approached safety, vigilance, and mental health awareness. A memorial garden was dedicated in her honor, featuring a stone path lined with wildflowers, her favorite. Visitors often sat on the wooden benches, reflecting on her life and the lessons learned from her tragic end. Each year on June 12th, residents gathered at the garden to remember her, lighting candles as the sun dipped below the horizon. It became a tradition, a reminder that even in the face of tragedy, unity and compassion could help restore some measure of peace. While Ridgewood would never be quite the same, the community's commitment to honoring Sarah's legacy ensured she would never be forgotten. Sarah's family established the Whitfield Foundation for Safety and Awareness, a nonprofit dedicated to supporting victims of harassment, stalking, and domestic violence. The foundation offered resources, legal assistance, and educational workshops designed to teach communities how to recognize early warning signs of dangerous behavior. The foundation also partnered with local police departments to provide training on handling stalking reports more effectively. In addition, scholarships were created for young women pursuing careers in design, ensuring Sarah's passion lived on through others. Her family believed that while they could never bring her back, they could prevent similar tragedies. The foundation's efforts soon gained statewide recognition, and Rebecca became a sought-after speaker, drawing attention to the critical need for stronger protections. Through these initiatives, Sarah's story transformed from one of heartbreak into one of empowerment, a source of hope for countless individuals who feared their concerns would go unnoticed. Despite the progress made, lingering questions continued to trouble investigators and community members alike. Some wondered whether Mark had acted entirely alone or if someone else had known about his intentions. Others questioned whether earlier intervention, perhaps at the time of his firing, could have prevented Sarah's death. The police department conducted an internal review, examining their policies surrounding harassment and stalking cases. Although no major oversights were identified, the review revealed areas where response times and follow-up procedures could be improved. As a result, new protocols were implemented, including mandatory check-ins for all harassment reports and enhanced communication with victims. While these changes came too late to save Sarah, They represented meaningful steps toward ensuring a tragedy like hers would never happen again. Her case became a cornerstone of training for new officers, influencing how future investigations would be handled. Sarah's story also sparked national conversations about the dangers of minimizing obsessive behavior. News outlets featured experts who emphasized the importance of trusting one's instincts, documenting concerning interactions, and seeking support at the earliest signs of harassment. Social media campaigns encouraged people, especially women, to take precautions when dealing with persistent unwanted attention. It became widely acknowledged that what may seem like harmless persistence can escalate into dangerous obsession when left unaddressed. Sarah's case, now studied in criminology courses and investigative training programs, served as a powerful example of this progression. Through education and awareness, communities across the country became better equipped to recognize warning signs and intervene before situations spiraled out of control. Her story saved lives by reshaping societal attitudes towards stalking and obsessive behavior. Even a decade after her death, Sarah continued to influence the hearts of those who knew her and those who learned her story through documentaries, articles, and community events. People described feeling a profound connection to her, not because they had met her, but because her story echoed a universal truth. Tragedy can strike unexpectedly, even in the most ordinary moments. Sarah's life became a reminder to cherish loved ones, stay vigilant, and support those who express concerns about their safety. Her mother, though forever altered by grief, found solace in the knowledge that her daughter's story inspired change. She often spoke about the importance of remembering Sarah not just for the tragedy of her death but for the beauty of her life, the laughter she shared, the dreams she held, and the kindness she carried wherever she went. Today, when people visit the memorial garden dedicated to Sarah, they often pause at a small plaque engraved with her favorite quote, "Even the darkest nights eventually give way to dawn." The words reflect the enduring spirit she carried throughout her life, a spirit that continues to uplift those who remember her. Though her story is one of profound loss, it is also one of resilience, transformation, and the power of community. Ridgewood stands today as a symbol of unity, having weathered one of its darkest chapters by coming together in sorrow and hope. Through collective healing, the town found light in the shadow of tragedy. Visitors often leave flowers, notes, or drawings in her honor, ensuring her memory remains woven into the very fabric of the community she loved. The heartbreaking disappearance and murder of Sarah on June 12, 2014, remains one of the most emotionally charged cases in Ridgewood's history. It is a story of innocence stolen, of obsession left unchecked, and of the devastating consequences that unfold when warning signs go unnoticed. Yet, it is also a story of courage, advocacy, and lasting legacy. Sarah's life, though tragically cut short, ignited change across her community and beyond. Her memory continues to inspire laws, awareness campaigns, safety programs, and acts of compassion carried out in her name. As we reflect on her story, we are reminded not only of the importance of vigilance and empathy, but of the enduring impact one person's life can have on the world. Through remembrance, education, and continued advocacy, Sarah's light endures, illuminating a path toward a safer, more compassionate society.